Hi everyone, today we are going to talk about material rendering on the fabric of the clothes. So for our reference, we have latex material, we have stockings, and we have some metal pieces that I might add in maybe in the future class on detailing. But right now, today we are going to focus on fabric rendering on the clothes. Perhaps we should start from this hand because this hand's in front and it steals the most attention away from everything else. So this hand in the front definitely is a priority to work on compared to the rest. And for now, I would try to make the form better before I go into texturing it. For now, let's make sure the masking is done properly first. So clean up as we go. And here we want to be a little bit more precise. So this starts maybe here instead of here. So we want to move this part up a little bit more, so maybe here. Yeah, I'm not worried about destroying the gloss that I have made previously because we can there's many ways to bring back the gloss later on, and also fill up the empty space with the skin below it. And there's many ways. One of the ways is that we can just copy the part with the gloss and then just shift it upwards like that. That way we can still get the gloss. If we can still get the foam here, that looks the same. At this point, I want to be more precise in the forms. So if this is our hand, we have our elbow right here. Let's go ahead and indicate the elbow area right here and soften up this part. At this point, definitely use references for your material rendering. And for materials, if you realize, right, for stocking, the edges is darker and then the middle is translucent. So the explanation for stocking would be that when it comes to the end, what happened is that the strand of lasers that you see, when it's facing us, right, it's looking like that. But when it goes to the edges, you are seeing a lot of lasers stacking up, therefore creating the opacity on the side like that. So this part is less lasers than the area that is like curving over. This is why we see lesser and we see darker edges on the stocking. So that's something that we can definitely use. The knowledge we can definitely apply to this stocking that we are drawing. Yeah, at this point I'm also not concerned about the texturing because there are ways to do texturing. Yeah, and of course I need to look at my line work again for the hand, and the hand here is really complicated. And also hand anatomy, we have a bulge, or we have a bone here, so be sure to also indicate the bone around this part. And since stocking is very thin, the kind of folds it gives is also very subtle and thin as well. So I actually have a brush for folds like that, and this is a very good brush for drawing folds and actually edges. So generally reference on folds. Hold on, let me pull up some stock. I found something that is easier to understand. So these are the kind of folds that we should have in stocking. So folds generally creases at places that bends inward. So if this part has a bend, then that's where generally the fold should be at. And then maybe even here a little bit. Yeah, generally there won't be a lot of folds in stocking because stocking are skin tight and this stretches. Most of the time they are stretching. There's no space for them to really have creases other than the elbow area. Yeah, if you render the creases too much, it will end up looking like a thicker cloth. So try to be subtle with this, as subtle as possible. So I'm using a smudge brush with scatter on to do my smudging. So you want to set to 10% and smudge it with this. This is a very common smudge tool that I use for every of my drawing. Keep in mind, if you are learning on how to blend, that's one way I use to blend stuff. Of course, right now I want the hand to look as elegant as possible. So we definitely cannot leave the muscle behind. There should be a piece of muscle right here. So at this point, your silhouette must be precise already. Yeah, if not, later on, it will be a little bit tough if the silhouette is wrong, because you might change the silhouette after you do the texturing and then you don't have enough texture that's filled up for the places that you forgot to add. So at this point, everything must be as precise as possible. Yeah, if it means to zoom in, if you are meant to zoom in, you should zoom in. Yeah, I'm even particular about how the muscle of the hand is already at this point, because it really is very important. And the brush I use for stocking is also very good for drawing edges like skin. Look at this line that's thick to thin. This way I can save a lot of time as well for drawing twice. Okay, let's go back to the references that we were using just now. So generally we see very desaturated black on the end, and then we see very saturated skin tone in the middle of the stocking, right? So right now we are going to add that saturation in. I would prefer to use hard light for colors, but you can also try out color or overlay, but do keep in mind that overlay sometimes might burn. The color might look very burnt in the shadowy area, so I tend it lesser. After we add like the skin tone in, we can color balance a little bit. We shift it to a little bit more yellow, but it still doesn't look as ideal as her actual color. It's slightly too much color, so we can erase a little bit more. So let's keep it like that for now, because we still have several layers of detail we can add later on. For example, gloss, the texture, the bits of like shiny bits on the material. So yeah, we have a lot of things to do to make it look good. So for base, this is very good. This is acceptable for me. Yeah, as long as you understand how to finish it later on, that's good enough. And then right now we can move towards the bra. At this point, since we are being precise, we also need to start doing parts that are wrong, start fixing parts that are wrong, and yeah, going over and make it better. And for the bra, generally we are using pure black. I try not to use pure black, of course, but use a black color that's off black, slightly off black a little bit. I want to make this part very I want to make the breast a little bit more sexy, so I'm going to give it bulge here to show the shape of the nipple a little bit. It's a little bit too high, so it shows that body, the fats around the skin is actually more voluptuous. We definitely gonna spend some effort here to make it look good. You can always use a lasso tool for things that are more straight, like this line should be very straight, but around here it should go a little bit into the curvy part, so it's easier to probably just hand paint this line a little bit. I notice my brush is a little bit not soft on the edges, so at this point it's definitely preference whether you want it super sharp or you want it a little bit soft. Yeah, I would normally only reserve softer brushes for hair, non-hard silhouette object, but for like skin, for fabric, for metal, I would generally use harder brushes. One thing I would do is I will use softer brushes for things that are further into the distance, because they are not required to be as sharp. So that's another technique that you can definitely try out. Okay, right now the shape doesn't look very consistent throughout these two bras. We need to find a way to make them look closer. The line is still not very consistent and smooth, so sometimes it's better to zoom out a little bit to draw wider strokes so the line look more organic as well. So definitely keep in mind there are several ways. And right now we are going to add the gloss on the material. So our value was somewhere here just now, right? So we should always do the softer light first before we go for the highlight. So I will take a big soft brush and normally try to figure out the form first. Where does the light come from? Okay, the light comes from our eye. So if the light comes from the front, from our eye, this part would be, so since we are drawing these two on the same layer, I will make a new layer and then I will just delete this part. It's easier for me to organize it, or I can just simply create a mask, darken it. Make sure to fulfill the form of the whatever we are working on. So yeah, right now it looks round, but we can definitely make it look rounder. Like when a glossy object is round, it will also reflect light on the other side. Like for example here, perhaps we should just separate this bra first so that we won't have any technical issues. So let me explain again. So yeah, so if there's a gloss here and this material is bending like that and like that, right, there will normally have, because it's so glossy, it's going to reflect things from the other side. So maybe a little bit of pink would be here because it's reflecting the pink, and then a little bit of pink would be here, and maybe also the sky lighting, that is we can use white in this case. So now it looks more glossy overall. Same goes for this bra. Well, it's reflecting the pink here. It's reflecting a little bit on the edges as well. Maybe perhaps a bit too much, and then we can use the pure black, right, to further enhance the curvature of the bra. So I will definitely add some hotspot here. And now if you are not confident, once again make a new layer, clip mask to go ahead and add the gloss onto latex. So at this point, since our hotspot is around here, the highlight should be at close to the edges. And also we need ambient one as well, the ambient light, and then into the hotspot, the lighting. So this way it looks super glossy. And then depending if there is any folds, you can also add some gloss around the edges of the line if the material is has a little bit of thickness. So yeah, there's a lot of possibility that we can do at this point. And then let's continue with the clothes. The clothes here, this part of the clothes is semi-transparent. Then we have like a glossy trimming around the edges. So for now, let's definitely try to make the shape correct first, the shape of the clothes correctly, and then we move on afterwards. We also can add a panty line later on, but for now let's focus on this part of clothes. So yeah, at this point it's definitely part by part rendering. So yeah, a lot of patience, and I think this is definitely the same material as the stocking, but probably a more opaque one, so you don't see as much saturation of the skin. So we can go to desaturate with sponge tool and go forward to on area that are too saturated, especially the edges. And at this point we can also make a new layer for the detail. Of course we want the detail to be separated because they are different material. It's easier to render different material separately. Yeah, we can use a different layer masking to tackle on different part of it. I'm also at the same time trying to match the design as accurate as possible. It's fine to be a little bit off since this is a personal project. And of course, even if it's off, it must look perfect it must look good in that view. That's all that matters. And I feel that this particular trimming design, it's nicer if there's one more here. Also, this is where I start to like add my own idea into beautifying things. Notice there's folds in the clothes. This is where we can start adding those as well. But for now, I will just be pulling out some forms of it and then using a new layer. Oh, by the way, we have to separate the boobs area as well because this is two different material. But at the end of the day, we will have more and more layer as we go from the different part of the clothes costume. For now, I think we should close the let's close the layer of the fabric because I want this costume to be a little bit transparent, semi-transparent. So it's nice to see a little bit of the panties in this costume itself. So for now, we should like fill in the blanks of fill in the missing skin that's underneath the costume. And they don't have to be really precise at this point because this skin is going to be hidden anyway. And then from this, we can see how the underwear goes around. New layer, underwear line. Yeah, this underwear is fairly thin. And then let's set this to, maybe let's not set, let's do a layer mask and erase the inside a little bit. So right now this clothes looks a little bit more semi-transparent. And let's not forget the other side of the, yeah, so far we are just dealing with the smaller detail and rendering part by part. And right now I think the skin is fairly too, there's no form, it's still too light. After we finish all this, we will go back to the skin again. So yeah, we will be jumping back and forth because it's tough to render one piece of the art fully and then move on to another one. That way it's very hard to match, and you might be bottlenecked into doing details and not sure if it will work at the end of the day. So it's important to take your time to polish each and every part slowly, and yeah, give priority to the things that are in the front or things that you think is important to do as well. Okay, let's save. So for the legs, it's going to be as the hand. So I'm just going to time lapse this part. Okay, everybody, and this is it for the base of the fabric rendering. As for now, it's just we're just gonna add some folds around the costume for this one. So I'll make a new layer, and I probably will not clip this because I want the folds to be more opaque than whatever the mask has done to the bottom part. So this we will just make a new layer, and then I will mask the entire thing, but keep the mask 100% on this piece of cloth. And yeah, and then we will just render from there. So I'm going to use a darker, less saturated color for the folks. Then we can use the same and also shadow area of the costume. And then we can like use a smudge brush that with the same setting to blur away some harsh lines. Always keep on checking zoom out version of how it looks. This is definitely very important to check. Yes, and that's it for the base for the fabric. I will see you guys on another video. Bye bye.